We're gonna film a wrap-up, a wrap-up. We're gonna film a wrap-up, a wrap-up. Hello there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mackenzie and thank you so much for being here. Today we are doing my April wrap-up, and you know what? April sucked. April sucked. It was not a good reading month. It was not a good mental health month at all. It kind of blew. I read 5 books, I read 1,805 pages, and it was all fantasy. And honestly, I think there are a few reasons why my reading month kind of sucked. Obviously, the mental health was at a bit of a decline that month. That month? Yeah, because it's May now. Also, I think it had to do a lot with the fact that I read all fantasy. Now, don't get me wrong, fantasy is my bread and butter. That's exactly what I love. In fact, there's really nothing that I think I like more genre-wise than fantasy. Maybe sci-fi fantasy. And we also figured out that I like fantasy romance as well. But honestly, fantasy as the overarching genre is kind of my deal. That's my comfort zone, you know? But honestly, I think that I have run into an issue. So I've read in this month, you'll see, but some series, and I think that reading series back to back can kind of hurt my reading experience because I get so invested in the world. I know exactly what I'm going to be reading next until the series is over, and after the series is over, I've spent so much time in that world that it feels like a huge betrayal to try and read something else, and it's really hard to pick something else up after that. So it's been rough, buddy. Also, not to mention that I didn't really like too many of the books that I read this month at the beginning of the month, and so that really just led into me not wanting to read much at all because everything was betraying me. So we're going to look at the books that I read in order because there's only 5 of them. I'm not too worried about separating them between star ratings. We're just gonna do in order. So that way you can kind of follow me on my reading journey and understand why I was in such a reading slump this month. Firstly, we're going to talk about these 2 by Leigh Bardugo. I always forget the name of them. I always say something different. Siege and Storm, Ruin and Rising. They're not titles that I remember or connect to the material very well. And that's not really necessarily a bad thing. It's just I always forget what the titles are. So these are the second and third in the series, in the Shadow and Bone series, the trilogy, the original trilogy. I gave both of them a 3-star. Yeah, I gave both of them a 3-star, and really the only thing that kept them from being a 3-star and not a 2-star was the fact that the world is so amazing. How dare Leigh Bardugo write about this world that is so enchanting and amazing with all of these cultures and these different people, and we have to focus on Mal and Alina? Let me just tell you a little bit of a story, alright? So, Star Wars, the original 6 movies, the original trilogy, and then the prequel trilogy. I hate them. The stories are so boring. The characters have fun moments sometimes, and some of the fight sequences in the prequel trilogy are my favorite. However, I do not care for the Skywalker story. I don't care for any of them. I don't care at all about this weird Messiah story. I don't even really care about the Jedi too much. I think they're too, World of Warcraft Alliance type, and I just don't they're just not for me, right? But the world that George Lucas created in Star Wars is amazing. All of those different aliens, and everyone looks creepy, and all of this weird technology, and the droids, and the clones, and everything that's happening around the Skywalkers and around the Jedi is peak. It's amazing. And honestly, I don't like the original 6 movies. They're kind of lame. I don't watch them in their entirety at all unless I'm being forced to. I watch moments and I look them up on YouTube because those are my favorite parts. Moments in those original 6 that kind of make the world feel beautiful. But then The Mandalorian came out. Even before that, when Rogue One came out, and it was more of like a war story, and it was taking place during the Skywalker story, but Rogue One had such a different feel and was just much more raw, and that's what I'm talking about. I want stories like that from the Grishaverse. I don't want the Skywalker story. The Skywalker story sucks. And I don't even want to say like it's the wrong parts of this story, because I feel like the story of the Sun Summoner and the Darkling and everything that's happening during this basic civil war in Ravka is like amazing. What I feel like truly is that the characters of Alina and Mal are written so poorly that it brings everything else down. And it's kind of crazy too, because everyone else seems to be written fairly well. Everyone else seems to be very believable. Everyone else seems to be acting within their own character description. They knew the assignment. Everyone else knows the assignment. Alina and Mal are stumbling through the assignment. It's not working very well. I feel like, and this may be true, and this may not be true, but what it feels like when I read this trilogy all back to back was that in the first book, we kind of wrote by the seat of our pants, and we didn't really know what was going to happen until the ending, and we didn't bother revising the beginning to make it seem more believable that Mal actually likes Alina, and we didn't. We just wrote it, and there it was, sent it off to the publisher. And then we decided to change Mal and Alina so much throughout the next 2 books that you're not even sure if they were supposed to be together, if it makes sense that they're together, if it's in character that they're together. Nope. All the backpedaling. See, this is why I don't really like friends to lovers tropes, because it's always written as one of the friends likes, friend A likes friend B. From the get-go, and we know that. Friend B in the beginning doesn't like friend A at all, and kind of just treats them like a friend, until one thing happens, and it's either like they get powers, or they have a makeover, or they start expressing interest in someone else, or something else, and then friend B is like, you know what, I'm jealous, and I want your attention back on me. And then it's written like we're supposed to believe this stupid love story even makes sense. There's so much backpedaling, there's so much rewriting of characterization, there's so much like, it's not even like I want Alina to be with the Darkling either. Like, I totally shipped Alina and the Darkling in book 1 because it was cute and, you know, whatever. But after you realize how creepy and how dark he is, and even Alina says it, like, the Darkling tells her, you're gonna make me good. And Alina's like, well, who's gonna make me good? And, like, that is peak. But then they put Mal in there and it ruins everything. Like, Alina's characterization, when it's not, has nothing to do with Mal, is on point. But as soon as Mal and this whole friends to lovers BS that comes in, it becomes muddy. It becomes unbelievable, at least, and bad at worst. There's also this moment where, like, I think it's in book 2 or 3, I'm not really sure because I kind of read them right back to back, but in one of these books, Alina's asking all of the girls around, like, who slept with Mal, because that's where we're at. Let's not forget that we are at a point where Mal has slept with so many people that we're supposed to still believe that our main character wants to be with him. Why would she want to be with him? She can't even trust that he's not sleeping around right now. Anyway, so basically in training, the girls called him a lost cause because he wouldn't sleep with anyone anymore. And I'm like, really? So that's the backtracking we're having to do. Because in book 1, Mal literally slept with and flirted with anyone who was willing, except for Alina. And now in books 2 and 3, you're gonna make me believe that he's, dedicated himself to her? No, no, no. Why? Why? It's either because she's powerful, which he spends the whole trilogy telling her, I don't want you to be powerful, I don't want you to do these things, and I don't want you to be this person. And in fact, he gets his way. So it's either that, or it's the fact that he's jealous of the Darkling and or Nikolai. And it's like, maybe if you were a better man to her and treated her better, you wouldn't have to feel jealous. There's no way on earth I believe or want this to happen. I mean, let me take this back. I totally believe that some lonely heart girl is gonna fall for some butthole of a boy. It totally happens every day. What I don't want is to read about it and have it romanticized. I don't want this. This is not happiness for me. And even the way it very ends, the way Alina and Mal's story ends, I hate that. I hate that. There's a lot of unbelieving that's happening in this story, and I can suspend my disbelief pretty far, but not far enough. Not for this. No. So after that, I took a break because I had to read This Golden Flame for a vlog. And you know what? I was actually really excited to read this book because it had automatons and it had pirates and it boasted about found family, and honestly it also had some queer representation and asexuality, which was an exciting factor for me. However, I did not enjoy this book. I did not enjoy it. One of the biggest sins of media is to bore you, to just be boring. And it's sad when media is boring, especially when the premise is so exciting. See, I've had books where premises were so great and the actual story was just a letdown. And I've had books that were the premise was so great and it turned out to be great. But this premise was so cool, I thought, and it was just boring. It was very boring. Exactly what I told you. Automatons and pirates. And no, I mean, just because, I said this in my vlog, just because you're on a ship in the ocean doesn't make you a pirate. This is a rebellion story, and I feel like I have this issue kind of a lot with YA, is they'll do this thing where they're like, I don't really know how to market this book, so we're going to, they market it in a way where they're just lying. Like, they're not really pirates. It's a rebellion. And they have it's an island nation, so of course they're on the sea as opposed to, like, traveling on the road. It's a very weird kind of lie. It's like almost a lie by omission. It's a lie by not giving you enough information. It's just very boring. So Karis wants to find her brother, and she has no other characteristics about her aside from that. She is asexual, but for all of her asexuality, there is a very strong focus on all of the other characters around her getting into a relationship. And that particularly might be because this is a YA novel and children are always obsessed with who's with who. As someone who is not asexual, whenever I pick up a book that has asexual representation in it, I am hoping to learn something more from them. I mean, even just a little bit. Just learn about their experience a little bit. And all I'm really garnering from the asexual experience is that as much as you are asexual, you really care about who else is hooking up? And, I mean, that doesn't seem healthy in any sense of the way. Like, even as just a regular person, you shouldn't be worried about what everybody else is doing. You should be worried about, like, yourself. And it just kind of felt like these teenagers were very unhealthy. It just felt like a very unhealthy kind of situation that was happening. And then there's the automaton Alex. His chapters are really focused on what does it mean to be human and how do you extend empathy to someone else. For all of the gravity of Alex's chapters talking about humanity and what it means to be human, it's lost. That whole conversation is lost whenever it's Karis's chapter because she is just stumbling through this plot. This was not good. I gave this book a 2 stars, and it really hurt me because automaton and pirates, and that's what I was told this book would be. And instead I got a family rescue and a little bit of a rebellion plot. And as much as this book was about a rebellion, there was no world building. Like, really at all. Aside from, like, we know the nation that Karis grew up in, but that's it. Like, we don't know anything else about what's going on in the world. We have no political intrigue really at all. It was so bland. It was bland. And that was sad. That was very sad for me. And then I read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. And I gave these books 4 stars. These were freaking amazing, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Okay, if this is the original and prequel trilogy, this is The Mandalorian. Like, there is no other comparison. I cannot believe that this came from the same mind as this. What were you holding out on me for? Why did I have to go through that whole trilogy of a horrible, horrible friends to lovers trope when you could have just done something similar like this? Like, the astonishment I had while reading this duology. I don't even know what to tell you. So, these are alternating points of view of all of the people in the gang. However, it's all written in third person, so it makes it difficult sometimes to determine whose chapter it is until the gang breaks away and you start following one person in particular, which is not so bad because you still get moments of mental insight into those characters of whose chapter it is. So it's not so bad, but it is still a little bit confusing sometimes. So this duology takes place 2 years after the original trilogy does, and it's all about these gang members in Ketterdam, which is an island to the west of Ravka, and they go on a heist. And then they get double-crossed, and it's all about them trying to save themselves and also get revenge and also what they're owed. It's amazing. It's beautiful. So we do have a character who is from Ravka, who believes in the saints, and who talks a lot about Alina and the civil war that happened. And there is a lot of talk about Alina and how, like, great she is and how, like, much she did for the Civil War. And I just kind of think back and I'm like, I mean, she didn't do much. She didn't even want to do much. It's hard for me because I don't like heroines or heroes. I don't like when the hero of the story, genderless hero of the story, doesn't want to do or save anything. Then if you don't care about saving the world, why should I care about you saving the world? We got to see a saint's life come to fruition, and then we got to see how people in the real world believe that Saint lived their life. And that was kind of interesting for me because it was like, well, you don't really know the whole story. So this series was absolutely amazing. The characters were much more defined, and I felt like they were consistent, and I felt like they had depth. The way that the backgrounds for each of these characters came together as the plot was progressing forward, amazing, astounding, a banger. I mean, I love non-linear storytelling. It's kind of my favorite, and I love when the backgrounds of characters bleed forward into a very well-balanced storytelling experience. These were very good. I'm so tempted to give them 5 stars, but I think that's only because of my excitement and the pure joy and the difference, the huge difference between this duology and the original trilogy. It's actually kind of amazing how different they are. A good, well-told story of people who are fighting for a nation or fighting for their lives because that's what they truly want. I'm tired of wishy-washy characters. I'm tired of not like other girls but also don't give a shit to make a decision. I'm tired of it. I'm tired. I want people who know what they want. I want to read about characters who are struggling to survive and making decisions and sticking to it. I'm just astounded. How does something like this even come from the same mind? And there wasn't even that big of a difference. So Six of Crows was published in 2015, and Ruin and Rising was published, I think, in 2014. This is only a year's difference of publishing, and I know she was probably working on it for a while, but like, the maturity level has been stepped up. The writing level has been stepped up. The ability to write characters and love stories, different kinds of characters and different love stories and different relationships in such a mature way, but also in such a clear and honest way and a believable way. A believable way. It's amazing. I mean, It's really amazing, astounding, a banger, amazing. I can't stop thinking about it. And that was the 5 books that I read in April, and now I can't bring myself to, after reading 3 super disappointing books back to back, and then 2 amazing books, I can't bring myself to read much of anything else right now. I'm just trying to read. But I mean, like I said, I think a lot of the reason why I'm having such a hard time getting through all of this is because not only did I have some discrepancies in star ratings, but this was all fantasy, and I feel like when we have some mix-up of genre, it makes it easier to kind of come and go into different fantasies. So, look at me, Mom, I did it! I read books! Alright. It's not even hard to have everyone up to say goodbye, you guys. This is just upsetting. So here's hoping to a better reading month in May. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!